Ibrahim Traoré did not expect to uncover an international scandal that afternoon, but what happened at that dusty checkpoint would soon expose something darker than anyone imagined. Listen carefully to this story until the end, because what started as a small suspicion turned into a moment that shook the silence around a dangerous trend spreading across Africa. The sun was high over the road, leading into Bobo Dioulasso. Heat shimmered above the asphalt. A military checkpoint stood firm at the entrance to the city, as it had for months due to heightened security operations. Cars slowed. Buses were searched. IDs checked. Routine. Controlled. But that day, something felt off. A long-distance bus from Ouagadougou rolled toward the checkpoint. Passengers inside were tired. Some women carried shopping bags. Others held sleeping children close to their chests. At the back of the bus sat a pale, nervous-looking man in dark glasses. He kept adjusting his hat. His leg bounced up and down in quick, anxious rhythm. One of the checkpoint guards noticed. "Why is he sweating like that?" the guard muttered to his colleague. The bus stopped. Passengers stepped down one by one for inspection. When it was the nervous man's turn, he hesitated. "Passport," the guard said calmly. The man handed over a Russian passport. His name read, Viktor Sokolov. "Purpose of visit?" the guard asked. "Tourism." Viktor replied quickly, avoiding eye contact. The guard's eyes moved to the strange glasses on Viktor's face. "Remove them." Viktor paused. "They are prescription," he said. "Remove them," the guard repeated. "Firmer now." Viktor slowly took them off. The guard examined them. They looked like ordinary sunglasses. But something small near the frame caught his attention, a tiny lens. The guard frowned. "What is this?" "It's just smart glasses," Viktor replied. "For memories, for filming landscapes." The guard signaled another officer. "Search his bag." Inside, they found a power bank, extra storage drives, and another identical pair of glasses. Suspicion deepened. "Unlock your phone," the officer demanded. Viktor hesitated again. "I need embassy call," he said quickly. The tension grew. At that exact moment, a convoy approached the checkpoint from the opposite direction. Ibrahim Traoré was traveling to inspect a nearby security facility. When he saw the small crowd forming near the bus, he ordered his vehicle to stop. "What is happening?" he asked his security aide. "A suspicious foreigner at checkpoint," the aide replied. Traoré stepped out of the vehicle. The guards immediately stood straighter. He walked toward the scene calmly, observing before speaking. Viktor noticed him instantly. Recognition flashed across his face. The guard explained quickly. "Mr. President, we suspect unauthorized filming. The device appears to contain a camera." Traoré looked directly at Viktor. "You are filming?" he asked quietly. No, Viktor said quickly. "Only landscapes. Tourism. Show me." The phone was unlocked reluctantly. The officers opened the gallery. At first, there were normal pictures, streets, markets, buildings. Then they opened a hidden folder. The atmosphere changed instantly. Video after video showed African women filmed from low angles. Some walking in markets, some sitting in hotel rooms, some unaware, some clearly inside private spaces. One clip showed a woman inside a hotel room, adjusting her clothes, unaware she was being recorded. The guard's face darkened. "Who are these women?" he demanded. Viktor stammered. "Just friends. They know." Traoré's eyes hardened. "Play it," he ordered. Another clip showed Viktor inside a hotel room in Ouagadougou. A woman was sitting on the bed, unaware the glasses were recording from his face. The room fell silent. One female passenger from the bus stepped closer and gasped. "That is illegal," she whispered. Traoré took a slow breath. "You invited women to your hotel," he said calmly, "and secretly filmed them." No, Viktor said, shaking his head. "They consent. Where is their consent?" Traoré asked sharply. Viktor had no answer. The officers searched further. They discovered folders labeled Ghana 2024 and Kenya 2023. Inside were similar videos. Market scenes. Women bending to pick items. Women sitting in cafes. Secret angles. Hidden recording. One officer recognized something. "Sir," he said quietly to Traoré, "this matches reports from Ghana. A Russian man was accused of filming women secretly and uploading to TikTok. Traoré looked at Victor again. You travel across Africa doing this? Victor's breathing became shallow. I just create content, he muttered weakly. For who? Traoré asked. No one important. The guard checked his TikTok account. Thousands of followers. Millions of views. Comments from men around the world. Some mocking African women. Some fetishizing them. Some praising the hidden camera content. The female passenger on the bus covered her mouth in shock. You shame our women for clicks, one guard said angrily. Traoré raised his hand slightly to calm the rising anger. His voice became cold. You think African women are objects for your secret camera? Victor remained silent. Answer, Traoré demanded. It's popular trend, Victor whispered. The words echoed heavily. A trend. Traoré felt something shift inside him, not just anger, but disgust. This is how you see us? He asked quietly. You cross borders to violate privacy? The officers checked the storage drives. More footage. More cities. More victims who had no idea they were being filmed. And then they found something else, messages exchanged with another foreign contact. The contact referenced good angles in Nairobi and crowded markets in Accra. This was not random. It was organized. The checkpoint, once routine and quiet, now felt like the center of something explosive. And no one outside that dusty road yet knew what had just been uncovered. Traoré stepped closer to Victor. You denied filming, he said calmly. But the evidence speaks. Victor's hands trembled. I didn't hurt anyone, he said weakly. Traoré's voice became firm. You stole dignity. Silence fell again. The wind moved across the road, lifting dust around their feet. The president looked at the guards. Detain him, he ordered. Secure all devices. As officers placed handcuffs on Victor, he began speaking rapidly. You don't understand. It's business, social media. Everyone does it. Traoré stopped walking. He turned slowly. Not here, he said. And in that moment, what had begun as a suspicious pair of sunglasses was turning into something much bigger. Because if this man was connected to the same network operating in Ghana and Kenya, then this was not just one predator. It was a pattern, and Ibrahim Traoré had just stepped into the center of it. Victor was placed in the back of a military vehicle, his hands shaking as officers secured the confiscated devices in sealed evidence bags. The checkpoint was no longer routine. Word had not yet spread to the public, but every officer there understood something serious had just been uncovered. Traoré did not leave. Instead, he ordered a temporary command post to be set up right there by the roadside. Bring a laptop, he said. I want everything reviewed now. The bus passengers were escorted aside. The women who had seen the footage were visibly disturbed. One young woman stepped forward, anger in her voice. So he was filming us on the bus too? An officer checked quickly. Yes, there were short clips recorded from the moment Victor boarded the bus in Ouagadougou. Low angles, secret shots, women adjusting dresses, unaware. The realization hit like a slap. Traoré turned to the women. You are safe now, he said firmly. Your images will not leave this checkpoint. Tears filled one woman's eyes. He looked normal, she whispered. He even asked for directions politely. That sentence hung in the air. Predators often look normal. The digital forensic officer began opening Victor's cloud accounts. What they found made the silence heavier. Private Telegram groups, encrypted chats, usernames that matched profiles previously reported in Kenya and Ghana. One message read, Burkina next, less attention there. Another, Metaglass is best investment, no one suspects. Traoré's jaw tightened. So this was deliberate, a quiet operation moving from country to country, exploiting African women for online attention and profit. The officer opened a folder labeled, Upload Ready. Dozens of edited clips were prepared with captions. Some were already scheduled for posting later that week. Hashtags, targeting international audiences. Music added, zoom effects, to emphasize body parts. One guard slammed his fist lightly against the table. They planned this like business. Traoré's voice cut through the rising anger. Control yourselves, he said calmly. He walked toward Victor, who was now seated under guard, pale and sweating. You travel through Africa recording women without consent, Traoré said evenly. You organize it. You edit it. You profit from it. Victor avoided eye contact. I delete, he said quickly. I delete everything. You already uploaded, an officer responded sharply. Victor swallowed hard. It's content. People watch. I don't force women. Traoré crouched slightly, so his eyes were level with Victor's. You think harm only comes from force? He asked quietly. Victor stayed silent. You record a woman in her hotel room without her knowing, Traoré continued. You upload her body to millions. You invite strangers to comment on her. That is not harmless. The silence around them was thick. Traoré stood back up. Who else is involved? Victor hesitated. No one, he said quickly. The forensic officer interrupted. Sir, there are payment transfers from 3 different accounts. One registered in Moscow, one in Cyprus, one unverified. Traoré looked back at Victor. This is not just you. Victor's breathing grew heavier. They only help with marketing, he said weakly. It's just digital team. Names, Traoré demanded. Victor shook his head. If I speak, I have problem. You already have problem, one officer snapped. Traoré raised his hand again to maintain control. Listen carefully, he said to Victor. You crossed into our country. You violated our women. You lied at the checkpoint. And you are connected to a network operating across Africa. He paused. You can cooperate now, or face full charges alone. Victor stared at the ground. The wind shifted. In the distance, villagers had begun noticing unusual activity at the checkpoint. A few people stood far away watching, unaware of the scale of what had just been uncovered. Traoré leaned closer. You said this is a trend, he said quietly. Who started it? Victor's lips trembled. It started on private forums, he admitted slowly. Western men pay to see exotic content. Africa is easy. The word hung in the air like poison. Easy. One officer stepped forward angrily. Easy? He shouted. Traoré's expression darkened, but his voice remained controlled. You see African women as targets because you think no one will defend them. Victor said nothing. The forensic officer continued scrolling. Sir, he said, voice serious, there are at least 200 video files here, multiple countries. Some hotel interiors appear to be hidden camera setups. The women standing nearby gasped quietly. 2 of them recognized the hotel in one clip. That is the hotel near the Central Market, one said. A new layer of anger spread. This was no random tourist filming in public spaces. This was planned exploitation. Traoré's mind moved quickly. This has just happened, he said to his security aide. The public does not know yet. The aide nodded. No media coverage so far. Traoré looked back at Victor. You thought you could pass quietly through our country. Victor's voice cracked. I was leaving, he whispered. Yes, Traoré replied coldly. You were leaving with our women stored on your devices. For the first time, Victor's composure broke completely. It's just internet, he shouted desperately. It's not real life. Traoré's eyes sharpened. Tell that to a woman who discovers millions of strangers watched her without permission. Silence again. The forensic officer found something that changed everything. Sir, there are draft videos with location tags scheduled for release tomorrow. Burkina Faso hashtags. So the humiliation had not even begun publicly yet. It was about to. Traoré turned immediately to his communications officer. Secure internet providers, he ordered. Block outgoing uploads from his accounts. Contact platforms. Flag emergency digital violation. Yes, Mr. President. This was no longer just about arrest. It was about stopping a digital wildfire before it spread. Traoré faced Victor one more time. You will answer every question, he said firmly. And you will expose every person connected to this network. Victor looked terrified now. I talk, he said quickly. I talk. He began listing usernames. Contacts. Coordinators who managed repost accounts across social platforms. The officers recorded everything. Names linked to Ghana, names linked to Kenya. A pattern was forming the same man, same method, same hidden cameras disguised as sunglasses. And until this checkpoint moment, he had operated freely. Traoré stood quietly, absorbing the magnitude. This was not just about one criminal. It was about dignity. It was about how African women were viewed and exploited for foreign entertainment. And if this trend was spreading silently, then this arrest might be the first time someone powerful had intercepted it mid-operation. The road remained dusty. The sun began lowering. Slowly. No official announcement had been made yet. No outrage had erupted. The world was still unaware, but at that checkpoint, a silent battle for respect had just begun, and Ibrahim Traore had stepped directly into it. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the checkpoint. What had started as a routine stop was now something far bigger, something darker. Inside the temporary command tent, laptops hummed. Officers worked quickly, copying drives, mirroring data, documenting every file. Victor sat rigid, sweat beading on his forehead. He had begun talking, and what he was saying was disturbing. "This is not only me," he admitted quietly. "There are channels, private groups. We share locations, tips." "Tips?" an officer asked sharply. "Hotels with weak security, cities where enforcement is relaxed, areas where women don't suspect foreigners." The room fell silent again. Ibrahim Traore stood still, absorbing every word. "So Burkina Faso was next on your list," he said calmly. Victor nodded faintly. "There was attention on Ghana after some videos leaked. Kenya also. So we rotate countries. Rotate countries, like targets on a map." The forensic officer projected the encrypted chat logs onto a screen. Usernames scrolled down in columns. One chat was titled, "Africa Run 2026. Another, "Metavision Ops." The timestamps showed coordination arrivals, hotel bookings, upload schedules. One message read, "Never confront locals. Act confused if stopped." Another, "If leader or police get involved, deny and say cultural misunderstanding." Traore's jaw tightened. This was premeditated exploitation. He turned toward Victor. "You prepared lies in advance." Victor swallowed. "It's survival," he muttered. "No," Traore corrected him firmly. "It's strategy," an officer interrupted. "Sir, we found video drafts labeled Burkina Market Series. They were edited, faces partially blurred, but only enough to avoid platform bans, not enough to protect identity." End quote. The women from the bus stood nearby, listening in disbelief. One of them whispered, "He was planning to post us tomorrow." Another officer raised his voice. "There are revenue dashboards here, payments tied to engagement spikes. The more views, the more money." Traore stepped closer to the screen. "How much?" he asked. The officer checked. "In the past 6 months, alone approximately $87,000 across different accounts." Gasps filled the tent. This wasn't random behavior. This was a business, a digital exploitation pipeline. Traore turned slowly toward Victor. "You profit from humiliation," he said quietly. Victor's composure began cracking again. "I didn't force anyone," he repeated weakly. Traore's voice sharpened slightly. "You entered private spaces. You hid cameras. You captured bodies without consent." He paused. "And you uploaded them to strangers who reduced them to objects." The weight of the words pressed heavily in the air. Then something unexpected happened. One of the younger officers who had been silent stepped forward with a tablet. "Sir," he said cautiously, "we traced IP logs. The same account posted viral clips from Accra and Nairobi last year." He pulled up screenshots. Clips that had caused outrage online months ago, women filmed in markets, hotels, public buses. At the time, no one had identified the source. Now the metadata matched. It was the same man. Victor's face drained of color. "You said no one," Traore said slowly. Victor shook his head desperately. "I didn't think you would connect everything." Traore stared at him. "You underestimated Africa." Silence. Outside, villagers had gathered at a distance, whispering among themselves. They could sense something serious was unfolding, though no one yet understood the scale. Inside the tent, the interrogation intensified. "Who funds the marketing accounts?" an officer demanded. Victor hesitated. "They are run by a group," he admitted, "mostly based in Eastern Europe. They handle reposts, fake pages, viral pushes, names." Victor listed several aliases. The forensic officer cross-checked. Some accounts had millions of followers. Some were verified. The implications were enormous. Traore turned to his communications chief. "This must be handled carefully," he said. "No leaks. Not yet." Yes, Mr. President. Traoré's eyes remained steady. If this spreads uncontrolled, it could spark panic. But if we control it, we expose the entire network. He looked again at Victor. You thought African women were easy targets, he said. Victor avoided his gaze. You believed no one powerful would intervene. The tension in the tent was electric. One officer asked bluntly, "Why Africa?" Victor hesitated. Because Western audiences see it as exotic, he admitted reluctantly. And because enforcement is slower. The statement hung heavy. It wasn't just crime. It was perception. A belief that African dignity was less protected. Traoré's expression hardened. That perception ends here. He stepped forward. You will give full cooperation, every contact, every account, every collaborator. Victor nodded rapidly now. I will. The forensic team continued digging. More connections surfaced. Shared spreadsheets mapping high-traffic zones. Hotel layouts photographed secretly before installing hidden devices. A guide titled, Blending In as a Tourist. The sophistication was chilling. This wasn't reckless behavior. It was organized. Traoré turned to the women standing nearby. I give you my word, he said firmly. None of these videos will be released. One woman stepped forward, her voice shaking. And the others? The women in Ghana? Kenya? Traoré's eyes reflected something deeper than anger. They will be notified, he said, and justice will not stop at our borders. The room fell silent again. The scope had expanded. This was no longer a checkpoint incident. It was a continental issue. Pan-African solidarity was no longer a slogan, it was becoming action. An aide approached Traoré quietly. Sir, we have secured all outgoing access. His accounts are frozen temporarily pending formal requests. Traoré nodded. Good. He looked one final time at Victor. You traveled across Africa believing you were invisible. He paused. But today, you were seen. Outside, the sky darkened. The first stars began to appear. The world remained unaware. No trending hashtags. No viral outrage. No headlines. But at a quiet checkpoint in Burkina Faso, a digital predator had been stopped mid-operation. And Ibrahim Traoré was preparing for something much bigger. Because this was not just about arrest. It was about sending a message across the continent. Africa was watching now. Night settled fully over the checkpoint, but no one moved to leave. Floodlights illuminated the temporary command tent. Officers continued copying files, sealing evidence, documenting every confession. Victor sat slumped in his chair, no longer defiant. The arrogance he carried on the bus was gone. In its place was fear. He had talked for hours. Names, usernames, payment routes, cloud storage links, everything. Ibrahim Traoré stood outside for a moment, looking into the darkness beyond the road. The air was cooler now, quieter, but inside him, something burned. Not rage alone, responsibility. He walked back into the tent. It ends tonight, he said firmly. The communications team had already drafted urgent legal notices to social media platforms. Emergency digital violation reports were being sent through official state channels. International cooperation requests were prepared for Ghana and Kenya. The network would not have time to erase itself. Traoré faced Victor one last time. You said Africa was easy, he said calmly. Victor's eyes remained on the ground. You believed no one would notice. No one would act. He stepped closer. You were wrong. Victor finally looked up, desperation in his face. It was just content, he whispered weakly. Traoré's voice sharpened. Africa is not content. Silence filled the tent. One of the women from the bus stepped forward. She had been quiet most of the evening, but now her voice was steady. You thought we would never know, she said to Victor. You thought we would remain silent. Victor said nothing. Traoré turned to the officers. Prepare transfer to National Detention Facility. Maximum security. Full charges under privacy violation, cybercrime, and exploitation laws. Yes, Mr. President. Handcuffs were tightened. As Victor was escorted toward the vehicle, he tried one final plea. I cooperate, he said quickly. Maybe lighter sentence? Traoré stopped walking. You cooperated because you were caught, he replied coldly. Not because you felt remorse. Victor had no answer. The vehicle doors closed. Engines started. The bus passengers were finally cleared to continue their journey, but they would never forget what they had witnessed. Before leaving, Traoré gathered them briefly. "What happened today will be handled," he said. "Your dignity matters, not only in Burkina Faso, everywhere." The women nodded silently. Some had tears in their eyes, not from fear now, but from relief. The convoy began moving back toward the city. Inside the presidential vehicle, Traoré sat quietly, reviewing the early forensic summary. Over 200 videos, multiple countries, thousands of comments from strangers treating African women like spectacle. He closed the tablet slowly. "This will not become another forgotten scandal," he said to his aide. "No, sir." By morning, coordinated legal actions had begun across borders. Authorities in Ghana and Kenya were contacted directly. Shared evidence packets were transmitted securely. Within 24 hours, the connected accounts began disappearing. Within 48 hours, international warrants were being drafted for other members of the network, but the public still did not know. Traoré chose to address the nation before the story leaked. 2 days later, he stood before cameras in Ouagadougou. His expression was controlled, but his words carried weight. "A foreign national was detained for secretly recording women without their consent," he began. His devices revealed a coordinated network operating across African countries. A wave of shock spread as citizens listened. "Let me be clear," he continued. "African women are not objects. They are not tourism material. They are not content for hidden cameras." His voice grew stronger. "Anyone who enters our land thinking our dignity is weak will leave in handcuffs." Across the continent, the statement spread rapidly. Ghanaian activists shared it. Kenyan journalists connected the dots. Suddenly, women who had felt violated months earlier realized the man responsible had been caught. Messages of support began pouring in. For the first time, the narrative shifted. Africa was not passive. Africa responded. Later that evening, alone in his office, Traoré stood by the window overlooking the city lights once more. This time, the air felt different. He was not celebrating. He was thinking, there would always be new threats. Different forms, different faces. But one principle would not change. Dignity must be defended. An aide entered quietly. "Sir, the women from the bus sent a message," he said. Traoré turned. "They said thank you." He nodded slowly. "Tell them this was not a favor," he replied. "It was duty." Outside, life in the city moved normally. Markets reopened. Children walked to school. The checkpoint returned to routine operations. But something invisible had shifted. A signal had been sent. Africa was watching, and those who mistook silence for weakness would learn otherwise. The road where it all began returned to dust and sunlight. Yet the lesson remained carved into that moment. Respect is not optional, and in Burkina Faso, dignity is guarded.